This is going to be another video in my continuing series of ranking the albums, and today I'm going to be going through the discography of legendary band Queen. There are 14 studio albums. I'm not going to count any that were released posthumously. I'm only going to concentrate on the albums that were released while Freddie Mercury was alive. I'm not going to count anything beyond with whoever other Adam Lambert, George Michael, any of that other stuff I'm not going to get into. For me, Queen was always the band when Freddie Mercury was alive, and it was just the four of them. So number 14, I am going to pick the Flash Gordon soundtrack. Now, if you haven't seen the movie Flash Gordon, it's still a Queen album, but it loses a lot. If you haven't seen the film, there's a lot of dialogue. There's, some cinematic types of music, some just theme music and atmospheric music from the movie. It does sound a lot like a Queen album, but there's just too much soundtrack elements to it for me to get a whole lot of enjoyment. I've not seen the movie. I'm not planning on seeing the movie just so I can enjoy the soundtrack more. So that's why I rank it lower. It still feels like a soundtrack album to me, even though it's definitely a Queen album, but that's just the way I feel about it. Number 13, I am going to go with Hot Space. Now, when Hot Space came out, it really was a shock to the senses because it sounded like nothing else that Queen had done before. It sounded like they were selling out, that they were totally going to change their sound and go into a new wave, electronic, kind of clubby disco direction. I know most Queen fans regard this as their least favorite album. I will say I don't think there really is a bad Queen album. Certainly there are weaker albums than others, and this one, for me, is probably the weakest of any album that isn't a soundtrack. And so I like Under Pressure. Even some of the, even though they're trying to do the new wave thing, I think they try to do it pretty convincingly, and I don't think it's really not a terrible album. I think that Back Chat is enjoyable. Body Language, not totally in love with, but I don't hate it either. Action This Day is fine enough. Life is Real, which seemed to be a tribute for John Lennon, is kind of a interesting psychedelic track almost. Cool Cat, Cool Cat, I see the charm in that song as well. So I'm not going to hate on Hot Space, even though it's near the bottom of my list, but not in love with it either. But I do, from time to time, maybe once a year, I'll pull it out and listen to it. I've actually got the double CD version, so there's a bonus track or a bonus EP on here with a B-side, a single remix of Back Chat, and 2 tracks that were recorded live in Tokyo in November 1982. So yeah, that's not awful. Number 12, A Kind of Magic. It's okay. It's got some harder rocking moments on it. It's got... The big track off of here was One Vision. That's just a really great kick-ass rock song. But the rest of it, it seems like every album after Hot Space was in danger of having at least some sort of song with a disco inflection to it or an electronic beat, or, there was always kind of that balance between, Queen would rock really hard, and then they would have, sort of a kind of a more pop-oriented, more disco-oriented track here or there, or electronic. So you're always in danger of that after Hot Space. So you kind of pick and choose. There's some good tracks that, are the hard-rocking Queen of old, and then there's some other tracks where it's just sort of, it's a little too electronic, a little too techno for my taste. Sometimes, Freddie Mercury would get into his operatic, ballad kind of a song. And so I think A Kind of Magic is one of the first ones where that balance was a little too uneven. I wish there were more harder rocking tracks on here, but all in all, not a terrible album. It's just a little spotty. Number 11, The Miracle. Now, Miracle, same for me. Unfortunately, and Queen's not the only band that fell into this trap, is where, the sound on some of these tracks is very dated. It's very much got a late 80s production to it. There's some strong songs here for sure. I mean, I Want It All is one of the best songs in Queen's entire catalog. One of their hardest rocking songs. The Invisible Man, I think, is pretty cool. I like the fact that they, Freddie name checks all the band members, although you have to be real, kind of observant or, be listening for it to catch it. But I think it's real cool. I think there's some, Khashoggi's Ship is pretty decent. But, again, for me, it's got some hit or miss elements to it. There's some tracks that I really like a lot, but then there's stuff where it's like, we've fallen back into the hot space formula of, a little too much electronics, a little too much with kind of sounds like a drum machine production effect. So, Miracle for me is pretty uneven, and that's why I'm ranking it near the bottom. I like moments on there, but then there's other moments that I really don't care too much for. Number 10, I'm going to go with Innuendo, the last album before Freddie Mercury passed away. And it's such a diverse album. I really think it's enjoyable on many different levels. There's just so many styles that they use on this album. I love I'm Going Slightly Mad. I think that's just, Freddie has such fun, not only with the lyrics, but also the way that he sings that track. The Show Must Go On, I think is pretty decent. I think Headlong is a really great hard rocking Queen track. It almost sounds like the Queen of old. And there are elements on Innuendo where, God, that really sounds like old Queen, the Queen that, we knew and loved from the 70s. And then, there's some moments where, a little like These Are the Days of Our Lives is a little too rich and syrupy for me, but I do like, certain moments on here. I think Queen really shines, and, I think it's a great way for them to end the Freddie Mercury era, and, rest in peace, Freddie. Considering how sick he was when he made this album, it's really amazing, not only that there's so many tracks, but that he can sound so powerful on so many of these tracks. Number 9, I am going to go with The Works, and this for me was kind of a return to form. It was sort of like, okay, well, Queen still hasn't forgotten how to kick ass and rock after Hot Space. Hammer to Fall has always been, one of my favorite harder rocking Queen tracks. I like Radio Gaga. It's that perfect blend of, the electronic beat and yet, the great Queen melody, the great Queen anthem. I love the performance that they gave it at the Live Aid concert. So that's great. I Want to Break Free is a lot of fun. Tear It Up is great. So a lot of great moments, and I really, at this point in my list, these are all great albums. These aren't ranked lower now because they have weak moments, although there may be a song here or there. But for me, from here on out, from The Works on up, these are all really solid Queen albums. Not a bad one in the bunch. Number 8, I am going to go with Jazz. This was their last album of the 70s, and it's a great one. It's got a lot of really special moments on it. I like, obviously, Bicycle Race was an instant classic off of that one. Fat Bottom Girls was another great Queen anthem, and, Freddie just has a great vocal and just such bravado on that track. I like, one of my favorites is sort of like at the end, the medley where you weave in the themes from the other songs, a bit more jazz. I think that's really cool. So I like Jazz. I think it sort of, bridges the 70s to the 80s in a real great way. Number 7, The Game. I love the title track, The Game. It is such an instant Queen classic. Even though it doesn't get that much recognition, I'm in love with that song. Yeah, obviously, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Freddie's Elvis 50s rockabilly tribute is great. Of course, another one, Bites the Dust, is classic. Don't Try Suicide is a great track. Just, it's a great rocking Queen busting into the 80s. And, again, just a phenomenal album and one of my favorites, obviously. Number 6, A Day at the Races, the sequel to A Night at the Opera. Some great tracks here. Tie Your Mother Down is just a barn-burning album opener. The Millionaire Waltz, it's kind of reminiscent of some of the more eccentric tracks from the previous album. You and I is fantastic. Somebody to Love is another Bohemian Rhapsody-like epic track. Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy is great. So just, it's certainly not as great as A Night at the Opera, but I think it's still a lot of fun. Still some great music on here, and they pull it off in true Queen style, and they rock, and they just do everything that we love about Queen. Just Freddie's on fire, and the rest of the band is just fantastic. Probably the highlight for me on here is A Millionaire's Waltz. I don't think that track gets enough recognition, but that's just a great epic Queen suite that I can just hear over and over again, and it's always fresh and sounds very cool. Number 5, Queen's debut album. This is the one that started it all. It's still a fantastic debut album. Keep Yourself Alive is great. Son and Daughter, fantastic. 7 Seas of Rye. That brief little bit at the end is great. Great King Rat, My Fairy King. Great instances of progressive rock. Queen has never sounded more proggy than on their first 2 albums. And first Queen album is just such a heavy prog classic. I can see how people who, maybe were introduced to Queen from their greatest hits are a little bit taken aback by the first 2 albums because they don't sound like the classic Queen sound. They sound, a lot more kind of like Genesis or Yes or, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or some of those classic progressive rock bands. But still a classic, still a great progressive rock album. Number 4, Sheer Heart Attack. Now on this album, they're starting to move a little bit away from their progressive rock sound. You've got Brighton Rock, which is a great hard rocking anthem. Killer Queen is their first kind of almost like glam rock, for their first foray into glam rock. Now I'm Here was definitely one of Freddie's signature tracks, and just a bombastic, great rock track, and just so anthemic. Stone Cold Crazy is almost I think the birth of speed metal. Most speed metal bands have kind of given tribute or credit to Queen for that whole genre. Bring Back That Leroy Brown, I think is a lot of fun. And In the Lap of the Gods, I think is a lot of fun too. But Sheer Heart Attack is just so, I feel bad I can't rank all these great albums number 1, but Sheer Heart Attack is going to fall at least, I feel happy that it's at least number 4. Number 3, News of the World. I mean, what can you say about an album that starts off with We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions? Sheer Heart Attack, All Dead is a great Brian May track. Get Down, Make Love. 9 Inch Nails actually covered that track, but Queen does a great job with it. It's just kind of a gritty, funky, dirty track. My Melancholy Blues is one of Freddie's great piano masterpieces. So much on here. I love the cover art, just everything about it kind of has that science fiction flavor to it. Just a great album. Number two, I'm going to go to Queen 2. What can be said about this album? It's a progressive rock masterpiece. Unfortunately, it doesn't get enough credit, but you've got just so many epic songs on here. You've got White Queen, you've got Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen, Father to Son. It's just such a progressive rock masterpiece. I mean, they were doing nothing different than what Genesis was doing, or Yes, or all those classic rock bands, and they could stand toe to toe with any of those bands and just totally, make your ears bleed, and just sit there and your jaw drops just at how great an ensemble they are. So Queen 2, wish this album got its props a bit more than it does, but definitely if you're a Queen fan, check it out. And my number one, probably not a surprise to anybody, A Night at the Opera. Absolutely. From the starter, Death on Two Legs, and then you're right into, the British dance hall, almost by Ray Davies, Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon. I'm in Love with My Car is a great track. You're My Best Friend was the Poppy single off of here. Seaside Rendezvous is another kind of campy little track. And then you've got a great dark progressive rock epic with The Prophet's King. Love of My Life is a sweet Freddie Mercury ballad. And what was that other song? There's another song on here. Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody. That song's pretty good too. But yeah, I mean, I there's no other Queen track Queen album that brings me as much enjoyment as A Night at the Opera. It's just a bona fide classic, and love it to death. That is my Queen rankings. So like all my other videos, let me know. What do you think? What are your favorites? What's your top 10? What's your top 5? Do you agree with where I put some of these albums, or would you have ranked them differently? Anyway, I'm just here to have fun with it. I'm not taking it too seriously, but, I love me some Queen. And as always, thanks for watching.